Hello and welcome to the Anchor Show on iBrandTV. My name is Bernard Joseph, where your favorite television hosts come together to analyze, to discuss, and to further clarify issues making headlines around the world and in Nigeria. And it's really interesting on this first episode of the program where we review the year 2020. It's been a roller coaster for all of us. It's been very interesting. And joining me on set to analyze all of the drama and issues that played out around the world and in Nigeria in the year 2020 are my colleagues. Ladies, gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you.
All right, so because we have so much to talk about, I'll quickly introduce them. Of course, you know them. Favorite faces and familiar faces on iBrandTV. Kali Obi, Margaret Okpara, Jidechi Chideze. And of course, there's so much for us to talk about, gentlemen. But first of all, let's start with Jidechi. How's your 2020?
Well,
One word.
Trust me, 2020 is not a year you want to use one word.
Margaret, do you disagree?
Well, I don't disagree. I agree. You can't use one word to define 2020. Like, I had an amazing 2020.
Oh, really?
It's
really?
Yeah, exactly. That's like the reaction I get all the time. Just like Bible say, where there's a casting down, you say there's a lifting up. I'm a Christian.
How did Bible
I'm a Christian, but that's the thing. I had an amazing 2020. Super, super amazing.
Kali, how about you?
I'll call my mixed feelings. I had so much feeling.
I think
The emotions were just running everywhere.
All right, now, guys, iBrandTV did a short documentary on what 2020 was like. I'd like us to quickly take a look at that, and when we return, we'll dive right into all of the issues we have for today. All right.
We may never have known, we may never have anticipated what events 2020 held in store for us.
It's a year I never pray to even witness again.
So hectic,
tough,
painful.
First of all, number one, I thank God.
We were hopeful, we were eager, there were dreams, we had goals and aspirations, and the world was ours to conquer. Or so we thought, until this happened. On February the 27th, the first case of the coronavirus was confirmed in Nigeria, and in no small way, the country was shaken, as many had prior to that time expressed confidence that the virus could not come into Nigeria, and then all of a sudden, Nigerians woke up to the reality that it was indeed here, and the memories of the Ebola virus and the Lassa fever, to which we had lost over 100 lives, rebounded, and in one single moment, Nigeria, like other nations before us, went into a lockdown.
It's a year of warfare.
It's been a very challenging year.
2020 is a year full of pandemic.
It was a terrible one.
It's very terrible.
Cannot say it's good, cannot say it's bad.
2020 is like the worst year so far.
Airports closed, flights cancelled, crashing oil prices, devaluation of the naira, harsher economic conditions, crime rates rise, and a period of terror emerging from organized criminals and the infamous 1 million boys. We saw the rise of domestic violence and law enforcement brutality, and as this brutality went on, Nigeria would witness the birth of yet another movement that will shake even the very height of the Nigerian political structure, power, and scope. The NSAs movement.
Nigerian youth are now moving to the streets in a protest that has gained global momentum. Nigerian youth are now saying enough is enough. End to SARS, end to police brutality, end to bad governance, end to corruption.
SARS, the Special Anti-Robbery Squad unit of the Nigerian Police Force, indicted for human rights abuses and extrajudicial killings, set up in 1984 to tackle the growing problem of crime in Nigeria, had been linked to the deaths of lots of those it had investigated, and in June of 2020, the Amnesty International released a report that documented at least 82 cases of torture, ill treatment, and extrajudicial execution by SARS between January 2017 and May of 2020, and young Nigerians had emerged to say that enough was enough. But unfortunately, protests in Nigeria against SARS, which had spread to London, France, Canada, and other parts of the world, in a further sign of the international solidarity that had formed around the movement, was met by a brutality even worse, inhumane, dark and vile at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos, Nigeria on Tuesday night, the 20th of October 2020.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. When you look at that report, you see that in your words, one word is not enough to describe 2020. We had the good, we had the bad, but I think for me, the word I'll use is unprecedented. We had the COVID-19, we had the NSAs, we had the land border closure, we had so much, and then Nigeria went into a second recession. But let's start with COVID-19 because it was in February, the 27th of February, Nigeria recorded its first case of COVID-19, and that took the country into some kind of shock, and it took the government had to bring in a swift response to ensure that we're able to manage the crisis. But Margaret, at the top of your head right now, what would you say about that period where it was announced that we had confirmed the first case? You know, initially Nigerians thought, well, this is not an African thing, probably it's the Western thing. But how did you feel at that time?
Okay, first of all, you said something earlier that the government had a swift response, but I disagree with that. The response was not swift, because when you had the first case of the Italian guy, even before you've already had cases in Wuhan, China. What you should have done was at that point shut the borders as for travelers. If you don't shut it as a whole, or shut everything, you have to put measures in place. But if you go to the airport, the negligence was on the high side. So now even allowing a foreigner come without getting properly tested, even aside that happened, and we had the AMVCA that happened, that even increased, and there was no crowd control. And there was no crowd control, so the response was not swift.
Was not swift
I feel
enough.
The government would have done
do you agree
better,
that the government should have shut down the...
Obviously, we know that the government was very, very negligent in terms of handling it before it got out of hand. But you have to also give it to the likes of Lagos State government that did a good job curtailing the spread of the virus when it started blowing out of proportion. Then again, you look at other things, you want to say Lagos State government did a good job.
In terms of tracking?
In terms of, well, let's not say tracking. I'll just say in the spread, basically, they did a good job in curbing the spread. But the main thing is the way it started. Should it have happened? There could have definitely.
Kali, do you think the Nigerian government responded appropriately to the COVID-19 pandemic?
No. Their response was so late, and you saying they did a good job, the Lagos State government, I totally disagree with that, because you just woke up and you said we're going on a lockdown, and before the lockdown, you saw people in the market. You saw the large numbers that went into the market to go buying food stuff and all that. Is that trying to curtail?
Talking about the lockdown, that had a huge impact on the Nigerian economy,
on everything.
We've not seen something like that before, you know. And when you talk about that lockdown, you also want to talk about the fact that the government had mentioned that palliatives would be distributed and all of that. But when you fast forward many months after February, where COVID-19 palliatives were being found in different warehouses, and you now begin to question the sincerity of the Nigerian government as to how they were able to manage that lockdown. Kali, do you think that lockdown was favorable to Nigerians in terms of not just about the palliative, but also in helping to curb the spread of the virus?
The lockdown did nothing for Nigerians, as I will, in my own perspective. Yeah, it never did anything, because you see families that are dying of hunger. A lot of people, it affected a whole lot of things, because I was out there once in a while to go do interview and all that, my report and all that. And what you hear from people is hunger. We're tired. Most of the people were staying at home.
Margaret, do you think the lockdown was necessary?
I was just about to say, it was necessary. It helped. And at the same time, it did not help, because in advanced country, when you want to put your citizens on a lockdown, you make provisions for them. And now you lock people down. And if you remember, the 1 million boys thing in Lagos, Nigeria started at that point, because people started vandalizing shops that were belonging to innocent citizens coming into houses. I remember where I was at that point. My vicinity, it was scary. Every night you just hear news of people going to houses. But then the lockdown actually helped. But at the same time, if you want to lock people down, you make provisions for them and not push people, even though staying is not it's not what's the word? It's not an excuse, because locking down people is not an excuse for stealing. But then you make provisions for your citizens. Look at the American government. Aside America, in the UK, they had a certain amount of money they gave to their citizens. They had even down to the palliatives, you know, not even distributed. Even the ones we saw on social media, it was noodles, bread, and rice,
salt. That wasn't enough, right?
That wasn't.
Let's look at the fact that Nigeria went into a second recession just in November. It was announced by the National Bureau of Statistics. We all know that, of course, the COVID-19 played a huge impact, the lockdown and all of that. We also had the land border closure, the Nigerian GDP contracted for the second quarter. And when you look at the recession, of course, we know that the COVID-19 played a huge role. The lockdown also affected. But the former governor of Anambra State, Peter Obi, in one of his interviews said that the borrowing culture of the Nigerian government, where we constantly borrow and we don't use that money to build infrastructure, rather we use it to facilitate the lifestyle of our political elites. When you look at the fact that Nigeria got into a second recession in November, the second within 5 years, how does that make you feel? Does the COVID-19 make you want to give a bit of excuse to the Nigerian government, or do you feel like there were a lot of things the Nigerian government did wrong, or it was a lot of things they probably didn't put in place that led us to another recession? What would you like to say about that?
The truth is, lockdown was good, just like she said. Lockdown was good, and at the same time, it was bad. One of the problems we have as Nigerians is the fact that we have leaders that don't think. We had a lockdown that was necessary, but at the same time, we had a lockdown that should have been called off at an earlier time. It shouldn't have lasted as long as it did. Because at some point I was asking, why are we having a curfew from 10 p.m. all through midnight? Is it that people will ask always, Corona is Corona? And you ask yourself, our economy is not so strong. The likes of US and the UK, the United Kingdom, they can have a lockdown as long as they like. It wouldn't really it wouldn't really affect their economy. But Nigeria's economy, we definitely know we are not there.
Yes, we are driven by a lot of SMEs where
we want to do things like countries that are in the first grade, and you expect everything to remain the same. It's definitely not going to work that way. Why wouldn't you now have a recession second in 5 years? Why wouldn't you have something?
Now, Margaret, did it come to you as a surprise that we went into a recession? You saw it coming?
I wasn't expecting it earlier than it came. Not like I'm trying to be negative, but I like to be very logical. The same administration in 5 years, we have a second recession. Now, I saw this coming, first of all, because of the lavish lifestyle of our political leaders. Some of those lifestyles are not necessary. Some of those allowances you give them are not necessary. You hear things like billions of naira go for newspaper allowance, wardrobe allowance, and all of those things. Like, really, even countries that have more stable economies, their political leaders do not earn as much as, no, with all respect to our political leaders, but then the lavish lifestyle is not necessary. And you need money to have this lavish lifestyle. And trust me, your country is not even, it's only a third world country, yes? And then you have leaders that earn more. And aside that, like you said, the borrowing culture. We don't borrow to invest. We borrow to
facilitate the lifestyle of our elites.
Come on, I expected the recession to come way.
Now, Kali, we're told that this is the worst recession since 1987. And I spoke with one of my guests on Business Review who told me that if we're not careful, that the current administration would have sold this country out before 2023. But when you look at the recession, do you see us coming out of this recession anytime soon? Or what are the steps you probably expect the government to take now so that we can have a more active economy?
The thing is, I still ask myself, are we still here? Because Nigeria is gone. We've borrowed so much that we've even sold ourselves out even before we even think of a solution. So you ask, which of the government is going to make a change?
We are told that we're borrowing from countries that we ought not to be borrowing from.
What I say is that if they keep borrowing, they should come and use me and borrow to the CBN or whatever country they're borrowing from. They should just come and lend me out to them. Because you say when you're talking about change, are we talking about the old ones that or we're recycling? So if we're going to talk about change, that would Nigeria ever change from borrowing or do something right, then we need to put the right people in place.
Margaret, do you think the current administration has the capacity to bring us out of?
I think there is a need. I think there's a need for accountability. Even the current, the past, the future. If you're not accountable, some months ago we had the issue of the saga in EFCC that is supposed to be corruption and crime fighting agents, and there's a saga going on with the millions of naira sent to the person's account to a certain bank and all of that thing. The need for accountability. You can't tell me you need for instance, 300 billion naira for trains. Why you need 30 billion naira? Come on.
Interesting. Talking about accountability, let's look at the land border closure before we take a short break. Because the land border closure also contributed to why we're in a recession, if we must be sincere with ourselves. Now, in August in 2019, the current administration said was going to close its land borders, especially with the Republic of Benin. Now, they said the reason they were doing that is to encourage local production of rice, to curb crime rates around the border and all of that. Again, was that necessary?
To me, it wasn't. It wasn't at all, because we have not, in our agricultural sector, I don't think we've really been able to help the farmers in the way the government, not us, the government itself has not been able to encourage the farmers. The farmers actually take from their capital, from their own profits to try to help themselves.
Now, if I may cut you here, somebody told me that our local rice is more expensive than the import. Is that correct? But then, Judechi, when you look at the land border closure and the fact that they talked about crime rate, don't forget that Nigeria is battling with the issue of insecurity, and we know that we have some of our borders are quite porous. So do you think you want to give the government a pat at the back to say, well, it wasn't that bad, it was necessary and all of that?
In terms of talking about patronizing Nigerian meat, the first thing I'd always look at is not even the aspect of agriculture. Now let's look at cars, for example. Do our government officials use Nigerian-made products? We have innocent vehicles. Do they use it?
Okay, so you're saying you and then you want
to talk about agriculture. You use these things.
Okay.
So I think the question I would ask, the necessity, sorry to cut you, the necessity of the land border closure is relative.
Okay.
I said that to say this. The question I note recalled in August 2019, where the economic communities of West African states had an issue with the fact that Nigerians were the Benin Republic and Ghana with other countries surrounding Nigeria, they had an issue with it. And then the question I asked in one of the interviews I had with someone, he's a farmer, are the Nigerian farmers ready to feed the growing population? Now, somehow I agreed with the president. I was happy he closed the borders, but then he closing the borders to make our local goods known amongst us was a good idea. But
how many things do we produce?
Yeah, but then aside that, what Judith said earlier is, with the COVID-19 thing, is you don't do things because other people are doing it. Are the infrastructures put in place? The infrastructures for farmers, the grants for agriculturists, are Nigerian farmers ready for the growing population? You come out and the border was shut within a short period of time. If you want to shut your borders, you put infrastructures ready for the farmers. You know that you have
to have the capacity.
You can't just shutting the borders is a good thing, but was it the right time?
Now, Judechi said that his problem is that he feels like the government was being double-faced. You are saying that you don't want us to eat imported rice, but you don't want to patronize our locally made vehicles.
My issue with closing the border and my issue with closing the border is it's not just in terms of agriculture. It goes beyond it. If you want us to use Nigerian-made items, you need to support the local markets. You don't show as a government official that you're patronizing the foreign market and you're telling the citizens
to patronize the local market
that is not even producing up to standard.
Kali, your final words on the land border closure.
Okay, let me go into this. I feel like I'm diverting from what we're saying. You're saying that you're closing the border for us not to, so we can use our stuffs, right? But when you're sick, you travel out of the country to get treated. So What are you trying to impart in us?
Well, I feel like the impact for the land border closure might not have been very effective in terms of favoring the Nigerian economy, but maybe we should give the government a pat at the back for the intention. The intention was to support, the intention was to support local production, right? Yeah. So maybe you want to give them a pat at the back. But of course, all of this, COVID-19, land border closure contributed to why Nigeria
truthfully, I'd never eaten local rice all my life. But after the land border closure, before I had Abakaliki rice, was when the land border.
Oh, really? How was it?
It was
you liked it?
Although it had stone, yeah, but
stone.
You know, I feel so embarrassed. I'm asking that question because I'm actually from a boy.
No,
so if there's anybody that should know about the Abakaliki,
no, it had stone, but I'm glad.
To cut away people some slack, I don't think I've actually eaten anyone else.
But they're trying anyway. The last Nigerian local rice
okay.
At least.
And because of the border closure,
I think we have Abakaliki rice and there's this other one from Ofada rice. Yeah. Okay, guys, you know how it works on TV. We of course would like to keep the conversation going, but we have a few bills to pay. You've been watching the Anchor Show on iBrandTV, where your favorite television hosts come together to clarify issues making headlines in Nigeria and around the world. We've been talking about the many issues that played out in 2020. We are having a review of the year 2020. What has your 2020 been like? We'd like to have your opinion and your comments, of course, across all of our social media platforms. We want to take a short break, and when we return, we want to look at other issues that made headlines in 2020, beginning with the NSAs protest. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
The year 2020 has been filled with different vibes on its own. So it's been good, then it's been not so good.
Was a very tough year.
Crazy.
Both negative and positive.
It was crazy.
Through God, we skate through.
I have to thank God for my life.
It's a very strange year.
It's a wonderful year.
It's surprising.
Correct year. God kept us alive.
And while Nigerians home and abroad were calling for justice and for accountability over the Lekki shootings, COVID-19 palliatives given to the country from the goodwill donations of individuals, organizations, the World Bank and the IMF were being discovered in various warehouses stashed away by Nigeria's political leadership, which further heated the polity and broke the hearts of Nigerians who yet suffer from the harsh effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and lockdown.
You see the crowd in Jos, for goodness sake.
Jesus Christ. Then, we don't have to carry this one finish. See this guy, see our government. How will they suffer? How will they suffer? How will they starve? For God's sake. See them, see people. We don't have to carry this one finish. We want to carry on. See people. See sugar, see Gary, see everything. God. See him. Which more? I don't know. 100 more.
Amidst all of it, the Nigerian economy recorded a second recession in the current political dispensation, according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, which is the country's official data agency. According to the NBS, the recession is the worst since 1987, driven by the long closure of the Nigerian borders, which restricted economic movement across the borders.
Welcome back to the Anchor Show on iBrandTV. We're looking at a review of the year 2020. 2020 meant so much for a lot of people, but on the Anchor Show on iBrandTV, we have your favorite television hosts who are here to analyze some of the issues that made headlines in 2020. We've talked about the second recession in Nigeria in 5 years. We've talked about the COVID-19 pandemic and the land border closure. And now we're moving next to the NSAS protest. In fact, on Brand Politics, one of my guests told me that he feels like the NSAS protest is one of the biggest miracles in Nigeria since Nigeria's inception. He felt like that was a movement that was needed at the time it came up to hold our leaders accountable. Because if you agree with me, for a lot of young people, it was more than just NSAS. Yeah. NSAS was more like an acronym for many other things, right? So, Kali, you covered a couple of reports at the Lekki toll gate, somewhere in VI as well, and then later on in Ikeja. Now, when you were making those coverage, when you were doing your report on the NSAS protest,
how did you feel about the momentum, the capacity of young Nigerians to come together to hold their government accountable?
Like I said, this year was a lot of mixed feelings for me. I wanted to remove my
press jacket,
join in with the youth and speak out, like speak up for one, 5 for 5 demand, and our demand will be given to us without any hustle you get. But first, I said it was a miracle the youths are speaking out for once. But after a while, when the hoodlums took over, it wasn't funny.
Margaret, I saw you nodding your head. It seems like you have an opinion.
Yes, I have an opinion about SAS because I've been a victim of the harassment of SAS. Yes. I don't know if I should say this, but it's just a short story. I know back then in school, University of Port Harcourt, we were coming back from church one evening, and we saw where they had the SAS junction there. I think the SAS men were trying to stop the driver of the vehicle, so he was trying to park. So they thought he wanted to run away, of course. No, it was a church bus, and like 3 SAS men cocked the gun and said, in pidgin, if you no stop, I go shoot any bullets where you pick now your own. Now you're talking to a university student, unarmed university student, and they brought a friend of mine out and asked him which court you join. He says, I'm not a court, and they hit him, he was bleeding. So imagine cocking. What if that was an accidental discharge? You look at me. I don't want my father, my mother, but then I was having 3 men cocking gun at innocent university students. Yeah, I was in 200 level. Imagine how small I'd have been, unarmed, and you're beating because a guy says it's not a courters. These were my friends, I know them. So I've been a victim of such harassment.
So the protest was more personal for you?
It was personal, but as a press personality, I could only go to cover. Even though I have my voice, but I like the fact that Nigerian youths took it beyond NSAs. But like she said, when the hoodlums hijacked it and the destroying of properties, BRT buses, traffic lights, I didn't like that. That was wrong.
Juliet, have you been a victim of police brutality? Because I know most Nigerian men have, at one time or the other, said, well, I've been a victim. Is it in your story as well?
A few cases I came in contact with SAS operatives. They didn't get so violent per se, like many people had. Mine was just one of the times I was getting back home from work in the night. Myself and my former colleagues, we got stopped, searched our bags, and all those things. And
very unprofessional.
Very, like, you wonder why are police officials searching your bags. And
the protest started on the 3rd of October, right?
That's one of the things that was that stood out for me during
the NSAS protest.
Thinking of the NSAS protest, one of the things that actually stood out for me was the beginning of it. Remember when it started with the trending
hashtag,
the NSAS that trended on Twitter for days, and then there was a case of Naira Marley saying he was
going to come out
and then
lead
an Instagram video chat with the IG of
police, and he withdrew.
And then Runtown and
Fouls together.
And Runtown said Thursday is Thursday, and Nigerians stuck to
and we have other artists that support.
And before you knew it, they took to the streets that Thursday. And it's whenever I think of that line. Whenever I think of that Thursday is Thursday, it's like what it strikes in me is that Nigerians can actually stick to something if they are ready to.
What do you think was foiling that protest? I mean, a lot of people thought the protest won't last for more than 1 day or 2 days.
Okay, what was foiling it?
Yes. A lot of people thought it was just going to be some 3 days, 4 days stunt.
I think it's just the fact that a lot of people took it personal.
Because most people had personal experience.
I don't think it's about taking it personal. I think it's you're tired. I'm tired of this act.
That's why I say. That's why I say.
I'm tired of this act. I can't take it again. I'm a youth, and I'm going to become the leader of tomorrow. Yeah, I will be the leader of tomorrow.
Nigerians are more fond
if you, as an old person, can't give me what I want, then I'm going to go take it by force.
But let's fast forward to the 20th of October, 2020. You know, it's a day most of us won't forget. May God rest the souls of those who died at the toll gates, because now at least we can confirm, in spite of the many diverse stories we are hearing, according to Amnesty International, we can confirm that at least 2 persons died, right? So may God rest their soul. But
just at least.
Yeah.
Leave it at that. Leave it at that. Just leave it at that.
But that Tuesday night, personally, even as a journalist, what played out at the toll gate broke my heart. I don't know how most of you felt, but
I think I should just Margaret help me because I'm losing words. And
Okay. My name is Margaret Kali. Hold on. I'm laughing today because I can laugh today. But on the 20th of October, I couldn't hold myself. I was shaking, I was tearing, I felt like I was going to collapse that day. I couldn't sleep because closing my eyes, I know I was at my first place and I walked. What happened? I said, I could see brains of people shattered. And now I had friends who were on the island. I had a friend, 2 guys that were my friends at that scene. And I tried calling them. They said, Margaret, I can't talk. I said, no. Where are you? Pray. It was that bad. It was very emotional for me because I couldn't. I've been a victim of police brutality before. That's why I can say it was emotional. I could imagine
what they were going through.
I could imagine even the trauma of being of if you lived in Port Harcourt, all those militant times, I could tell this shootout alone could make you have a cardiac arrest.
I think that was the night where DJ Switch became a hero for many of us. Kali, what would you say about what she did that night to give us live coverage on Instagram, which a lot of international organizations are beginning to use now to say, okay.
What stands out more is the fact is what played out between the federal government and CNN.
Oh yes, okay.
DJ Switch, I'll always give it to her. Anytime, any day, that lady is a hero, and she will remain like the Guinness Book of Record. I'm sure her face, but she did a lot because she was able to give us the live coverage of everything that happened. Everybody was watching it, and I remember the night my phone fell from my hand like 1,000 times. I was crying, and I
couldn't even watch it. I didn't watch it.
That took me back to 2005 when I went to my cousin's place. I was very young, and on my way back, we were stopped at K2 bus stop. And I grew up in Magodo, so we stopped at K2 bus stop, and we're asked to do frog jump from Tipa Garage to K2 bus stop. I will never forget that day. We did frog jump, and I couldn't walk home. I couldn't. I was actually crawling.
I'm really sorry about that experience.
I got home 2 days, and I'm imagining these people what they went through that night. You, like in a battleground, you are being asked to go to the forest and go and fight Boko Haram. I'm sorry I'm taking this personal, but you can't go to the forest and go and fight Boko Haram, but you can actually shoot at young youths.
We heard that.
We
heard that the ambulance was trying to get into where the protesters
and they refused.
And they were blocked. But where I have a concern is the fact that we're getting a lot of stories. The international community are trying to tell us what happened. You mentioned the investigative journalism done by CNN. The Lagos state government, another story. The Nigerian military, another story. The federal government, another. So at this time, we can't really say what the story exactly is. But Jide, just as a way to wrap up that conversation on the NSAS protest, do you think that we'll ever get to know what really happened that night?
The truth is, things like this, I just believe the government always wins. I just think it's the way it plays anywhere in the world. The government always wins. It's just like you're a gambler. You go to a gambling house and you think you can always defeat the house always takes.
Talking about the fact that the government always wins, it doesn't seem like the government is winning in the battle against insecurity in Nigeria. Just on the 11th, just on the 11th of December, we were told that over 300 schoolboys in Kankara, Katsina State were abducted by the federal government said bandits, rather the state government said bandits. Now, Boko Haram later came on to say, well, we take responsibility for the action. We still... Why is it that in Nigeria, right, we cannot get the exact story? But I don't think that's the conversation now. Let's talk about insecurity in Nigeria. And Kali, I'd like to start with you. In the former administration, we had the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls. In the current administration, we had the hashtag Bring Back Our Boys. What is
our boys are back?
What is it with security in Nigeria that our government cannot get right?
Even in my house, am I secured enough? It's only God that is my security. So that's what I'd say. That's what I'm going to say. But I never believed that story of the boys. So sorry that I'm saying it out. Like I said, my emotions are going to play out on this. But when you say bring back our girls, who were brought back? Old women with babies. So I didn't see any girl or any form of girls, a group of girls that was brought back to us. They all had babies, and some of them said they were pregnant before they left. So it's the insecurity stuff in this country is quite annoying.
Now, Margaret, talking about the fact that about the abduction of the schoolboys on the 11th of December, a lot of people had a problem with the fact that the president didn't even visit the school at the time the event happened, and he didn't address the issue. So a lot of people feel like, I was listening to the spokesperson for Atiku when he ran for the presidency in 2019, and he said he has a concern with the fact that the presidency often has to be begged to speak with Nigerians, and that it seemed like the presidency does not understand the power of hope coming from the words of a president. Do you also share that concern that the president is often too slow to address issues of national interest?
I used to share in the line of thought that presidency does not whichever address the people. But after the NSAS protest bringing back, after the presidency address, I said to myself, it was better he did not address, because it's one thing to come and talk, and that is come and talk and increase the anger of people you're talking to. Now, for a leader, there's difference between a boss and a leader. You can be a boss. You can be a boss to tell you, I need this thing done. A leader, okay, you even see him and you're doing because your leader is, that leadership is not, we can have presidents, governors, senators, but do we have leaders? No, we do not have leaders. So having to be begged to even talk to your people alone is an error.
Already shows
and
a
now
lack of capacity.
even coming out to say something, the NSAS protest, it's annoyed. After that speech, it annoyed a lot of Nigerians.
And Nigerians are saying it's better for him
not to say anything. So right now, as far as I'm concerned, it was better he didn't say anything at all, because you don't know the one he will say that will make people even get angry. So thank you, sir.
If we go back to the story of those boys that was killed in Port Harcourt, he never said anything about that case.
Yes, we have a lot of, we had insecurity issues in Port Harcourt as well. I think Obigbo, where...
Oyibo.
Yes. The president come out to address that.
It didn't get attention at all. It didn't get attention.
I wonder why that did not. Is it because it's not the Northeast?
No, I was born in Port Harcourt. I lived in Port Harcourt. I schooled in Port Harcourt. My parents are still in Port Harcourt. It's like my home. Aside the time of Jonathan, we had the Niger Delta boys come out to fight for whatever. You would see... I know at that point, that was 2004, 5. You could move on the streets of Rumola then in Port Harcourt. You would see bodies on the road. Borokiri, you would see bodies on the road. And then, that was even good luck Jonathan's period. Yet, okay, how the Niger Delta boys were pacified, that's a very good one. I don't know what they did, but that's alone. Insecurity did not start today. So this topic is long overflowed. So the more you talk about it, the more it's making
other issues will come.
Now, Judechi, the indigenous people of Biafra, led by Nnamdi Kanu, they say that one of the reasons they are also calling for an independent state is also the issue of insecurity, that they don't feel safe within the Nigerian project. Do you think Nigeria will ever get this issue of security right?
That's a very big question, to be frank, because like she just mentioned, it's been an ongoing.
Whenever I look at your face, Judechi, I feel like you feel like the Nigerian project is hopeless. Do you have any sense of hope?
I'll be frank with you. I had sense of hope during the protest.
Okay, and then what happened?
At least a slight sense of hope.
Do you still have that hope? Or you feel it's been squashed?
Until October 20th.
Well, we can only hope for the best.
We can only...
If we go back to what like Mohammed said, he said why the boys were kidnapped was because of they've refused to give them some weapons. I don't know if we go back to what like Mohammed, what he mentioned in that part that made me ashamed of being a Nigerian. He said because of the international where they refused to give sell to them some weapons that they deserve to fight.
I feel like
that was
I feel like well, we cannot afford to be totally hopeless. In the words of the Catholic Bishop Kuka, who is currently under fire again for his Christmas message on saying that
the government should be more transparent. He said our hopes must never be in recession. So let's see how we can hold on to that and continue to believe in the Nigerian project. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we would like to conclude this conversation with two other very important headlines that made the narrative in 2020. You're still watching The Anchor Show on iBrandTV. My name is Bennett Joseph. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll dive right into other issues that made headlines in 2020.
And on the 11th of December 2020, while the country's President Muhammadu Buhari flew off to take a holiday at his country home in Daura, an ancient seat of Islamic learning in the northern state of Katsina, that night, hundreds of gunmen riding on motorbikes stormed the boarding school in Kankara, also in Katsina State, and more than 300 schoolboys were rounded up and headed into nearby surrounding forests. Although it was not immediately clear who the culprits were, the Nigerian government said that the school children were taken away by bandits who had demanded a ransom for their release, but the jihadist Boko Haram group later claimed responsibility for the kidnap. In 2020, the soul of Nigeria was called to question. Tales of corruption in government, public and private sectors, land border closure, and the endemic of rape and violence, insecurity and poverty at its increase. For Nigeria and for the world, 2020 hit hard and will not be forgotten in a hurry.
Welcome back to the Anchor Show on iBrandTV. We're having a review of 2020 and the major stories that made headlines around the world and in Nigeria. And of course, with me in the studio are two amazing ladies and a gentleman, Margaret Okpara, Kali Obi, Juliet Chichizeze. Thank you so much for gracing this first episode of the Anchor Show on iBrandTV. We've had really interesting conversations on the many stories that made headlines in 2020. But let's quickly wrap up the show with how COVID-19 has changed the face of our world, our life. We know that in sports, for instance, a lot changed. In entertainment, a lot changed. People could no longer gather and celebrate those things that would actually count as leisure for many of us. I'd like to start with you, Margaret, about COVID-19 and how it has changed our human experience. Especially in those areas mentioned, in entertainment, in sports, even in fashion. We're told that you can't go into certain spas and makeup places these days because of the social distancing. And how much impact do you think COVID-19 has changed and had on human living generally?
Yeah, I'll start from the corporate world, because now employers have realized that they can actually not have so much staff and still have the work done. Now the use of Zoom, like for instance, I have a friend from Port Harcourt that the office pays their flight ticket to Lagos and hotel bill every month for a certain kind of review that they have to do together. And now that's incurring cost on the company. And now the COVID-19 period, they were not able to do that for like the 3 months. And then they realized they could do it successfully via Zoom. And now all the money, the little change they get from the allowances they give them to travel, the company had saved that.
So people now work remotely?
Successfully. Now the business world will not be the same again. Employees should have to realize that your job can go on even whether you're not there or not. So you have to up your game.
Do you think remote work has come to stay? Where people
it has. Then moving further to marriages, I'm so glad though. Not that I like COVID-19, but because I don't want a big wedding. So it's not an opportunity.
No, we're having that big wedding. If that's what you're trying to say, we're having a big wedding. Members of staff iBrandTV would like to be fully represented.
The problem is now is that if the government not even allowed, I've always not wanted a big wedding, but my sisters will want. I want this one to come, but now
you want to have your wedding via Zoom.
I can do it. Just something I can do. But now you have seen that. Weddings, people that kill themselves on high-end hall, that the art friends had to cancel all those things because the COVID-19 came when they had to do the wedding. And the wedding, they are married now, and they didn't have to do so much. It has changed the world. Entertainment shows now. Even the next AMVC had this. It can't even be held in large. I now see the use of social media. You see how important social media is. It has changed the world for good and also for bad. Because
now let's talk about sports. Where I would like Jidechi to really help us here.
Sports guy,
yes. I know you're the anchor for Sports Review on iBrandTV. So, how huge was the impact of COVID-19 on sports?
Well, we started the show by talking about 2020, an unprecedented year. Well, let's start with since I was born. Never have I. Okay, well, the only times I can think of football matches being played in empty stadiums were when possibly one team defaulted and you have a stadium ban, fans and all that. Aside that, I've never seen this. Most of us have never seen something like this before. And beyond that too, you look at the revenue aspect for the club sides. The likes of Arsenal, they had to lay off staff. So that's the bad part of the COVID-19. The bad part that came with COVID-19. She mentioned weddings. A lot of people would
lost jobs.
The likes of Ashubi, you're not getting to make dresses for a whole bridal train, event hall owners. You do
so revenues were not coming.
Revenues, people losing revenues and everything. But it also helped. It helped people to think out of the box. How can we do things in a different way from the way we've been doing it before? You realize that you can have fans join over the internet and those type of things. Lots and lots of outside the box thinking. But at the same time, is it the kind of sports we want to see? Truth is that sports is not the same without the fans.
It might not even be the same ever again.
Now, Carly, most of the award ceremonies we've seen in entertainment, like the Oscars and so much more that will come in the days ahead, we're seeing that it's happening online via virtual space. How are the celebrities, the entertainers responding to the fact that they can no longer go on tours, on shows? And how do you think that has affected their capacity to be able to engage with their fans?
It has really affected a lot, because remember in 2019, by this time, December last year, we had a lot of events and all that. We go for events and shows, Naramali's performing, Tenny and all that. But it has reduced a lot.
Yeah, and Davido's show was actually cancelled. It was supposed to be on the 28th, right? I had plans to attend.
Even Thames and this guy were arrested.
Yes.
Thames and Omale were arrested
in Uganda.
So even before then, we had Funke Akindele and her husband.
Yeah, who had issues with the Lagos state government.
Naramali too was arrested. I was asked to pay 100,000 or something. So it's not to be funny. It has never, since the COVID-19 stuff started, I would say for the artists and the actors and everything, it's never funny.
Do you think the entertainment industry will come back, will bounce back?
I don't think.
Anytime soon?
It's scary that I don't think it's going to.
And now there's a second wave.
And with the churches
talking about a second wave of the COVID-19, that's also a disturbing story. But then again, let's say I'm a man of hope. So I mean, what are your hopes for 2021?
Don't overhype.
Well, we should not talk about it.
That's what I was going to say. People say we overhyped 2020 and that's what we're getting. But well, I think it's just a case of hoping for the best.
For 2021?
To be frank, 2020 has taught us that you can get what you never planned for. So 2021, you can't say this is what you're going to get. I think it's just a case of each day as it comes.
Kali Obi, 2021.
2021. Okay, my hope, right? 2020 has taught us to be more creative. Even if you're not doing certain thing at a point in time, you need to be creative, because we use Omali as an example. During the COVID-19, he was coming out with great songs. So 2021, no matter what, just be creative and always put your plan right. That's it.
Margaret, 2021?
Yeah, 2020 has taught me to be grateful for the little things I have, because everyone expected a lot for 2020, because it's more like 2020, everyone expected this vision 2020, but it came and threw everyone off guard. So it taught me to be grateful for the little things. See, I said yesterday, someone, if you can breathe, in this year, if you can afford 2 square meters and a roof over your head, you have every right to be thankful. And 2021, just live, like you said, live each day as it comes. Each day, live each day like it might be your last. It might just not be your last, but live each day, be thankful, and try not to go out of vogue. If it was 2020 in the midst of the coronavirus, TikTok and Zoom made so much money. So always be relevant, even in the midst of Palava. I think, but 2021 holds a great year for me. Like I say, 2020 in the whole of the Wahala, I had a lot. No, I'm not hyping. No, I'm not hyping. I am speaking those things that be not as though they were.
Okay.
Don't worry, you will see my 2021.
Okay, all right. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you so much for your contributions on this first episode of the Anchor Show on iBrandTV. I'm very hopeful about 2021 as well. Yeah. I'm a man of faith, so I believe I should always anticipate the best. But our people say we should prepare for the worst. Thank you so much, ladies, gentlemen, Margaret Okpara, Kali Obi, Jidechi Chideze. We look forward to having you more and more often on the show, where we're able to help our viewers put issues more in context and in perspective. You've been watching the Anchor Show on iBrandTV, where your favorite television hosts come together to help put issues in context, analyze the issues, and make clarity on the stories making headlines. Don't forget, you can watch this episode of the program on our YouTube channel, like and follow all of our social media platforms, and of course, visit our website for more news stories. My name is Bennett Joseph, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.